Devastating fires ravaged through Northern California as people have to evacuate. Whew. Well, good morning, one and all. This is Monday, June the 3rd. Gosh, it sounds real strange to say June 2024. And welcome once again to BS3 Presents the Morning Shift with Cole Johnson. I am Cole Johnson. And for the next 60 minutes, sit back and relax as we get you and keep you informed, enlightened, educated, and spiritually fed. On today's program, we will unfortunately touch on the mass shooting that took place in Akron, Ohio this past weekend, with one being shot dead and 24 injured. We also will uncover the wildfires that's taking place in Northern California. And it doesn't seem to be the right time for that, but it is. And we will later, enlighten the way, touch on what does God think about pride? That is all upcoming. But for now, let's get you started up. And here is what's taking place in the world today. Hunter Biden's addiction to crack cocaine was so bad, he recalled, that he alienated his children and his famous father despite their repeated attempts to help. It was so bad that he lived among a pool of sleazy hangers-on in grimy hotel rooms on two coasts, prowling camps of homeless people for drugs at night. It was so bad that he left his laptop at a Delaware repair shop and never came back for it until, in the heat of the 2020 presidential campaign, a worker passed the private contents of its hard drive, including explicit images of videos, to former President Donald Trump's campaign lawyer, Rudy Giuliani. Those would later be displayed in the House of Representatives by Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene, and his trial is set to begin today. Speaking of DC's surroundings, a black bear was found dead in a plastic bag near a park's walking trail in Arlington, Virginia. Of course, that is a suburb of DC. On Friday at 8:30 p.m., a plastic bag was reported near a walking trail in Spout Run Parkway, according to a press release from the Animal Welfare League of Arlington. Police suspected that there was a dog inside, but instead a body of a black bear. Chelsea Jones, the Animal Warfare League of Arlington's senior communications specialist, told USA Today, quote, "It's a very unusual incident," close quote. She said that the local resident found the bear and reported the incident. The bear was at least several hundred pounds and wasn't removed from the scene until about 1 a.m. Saturday. Juneteenth, which black families have celebrated for generations, actually Texas black families celebrated for generations, dating back to Reconstruction, became one of a dozen federal holidays in 2021. However, it is not the only African-American holiday to gain recognition. There are others, such as Negro Election Day, which is the day Black New Englanders elected community representatives, and that predates the American Revolution and is a Massachusetts holiday. And then there's Pinkster. Pinkster is Dutch for the Pentecost. The festival following Easter, or Resurrection Sunday, honors the Holy Spirit, inspiring Jesus Christ's disciples to initiate the church's missionary work. Pinkster is among an array of lesser-known African-American or Black holidays, although historians say it is likely one of the earliest. 5 earthquakes rocked through California on Sunday morning, around Southern California, and 4 of them were ranked among having a magnitude of 3.0 and higher. The U.S. Geological Survey confirmed people in Alum Rock, California experienced a 3.4 magnitude earthquake at 3:35 a.m. on Sunday local time. And then just over 2 hours later at nearly 6 a.m. local time, South Pasadena felt a similar earthquake with the same magnitude. The world's oceans have consistently been breaking daily heat records since 2023, a year-long fever that has climate scientists, coral reef experts, and even hurricane forecasters concerned and dismayed. In the main region of the Atlantic Ocean where hurricanes develop, water temperatures are, by Brian McNulty, a senior research associate studying hurricanes at the University of Miami's Rosenthal School, cited, quote, absolutely stunning, close quote. Hotter oceans and sea surface temperatures are like an octane boost from hurricane season, cranking up the fuel that drives the formation and intensity of hurricanes and tropical storms as they move over the ocean. Warmer than normal waters in the Atlantic, the Caribbean, and the Gulf of Mexico play starring roles in the seasonal outlooks for the Atlantic hurricane season, and it began this past Saturday. Jennifer Lopez has canceled her summer North American tour, which was to be her first in 5 years, weeks before she was scheduled to go on the road. The pop star made an announcement Friday on the J.Lo fan newsletter. The public statement was then followed by a personal note from Jennifer Lopez herself entitled "A Special Message to My J Lovers on the J.Lo." She said, quote, "I am completely heartsick and devastated about letting you down. Please know that I wouldn't do this if I didn't feel it was absolutely necessary. I promise I will make it up to you and we will all be together again. I love you all so much. Until next time." Close quote. Well, at the young, tender age of 93, Rupert Murdoch is once again a newlywed. The media mogul and former News Corp executive chairman married girlfriend Elena Zukova on Saturday. A representative from Murdoch confirmed to USA Today. And photos of the wedding day was also shared there, along with Murdoch posing with the bride as she held out a bouquet of flowers. The ceremony took place at Murdoch's California vineyard and estate. News of the wedding was previously reported by Fox News and The Sun. The terms dry drowning and secondary drowning have cropped up in media during recent years. While dry drowning and secondary drowning have been used to describe very real medical ailments associated with drowning, the medical community generally does not use such terminology. That's because all drowning is considered drowning, according to Dr. Michael D. Patrick, medical doctor. With dry drowning, water never actually enters the lungs, per Detroit Medical Center. Rather, when water is inhaled through the nose or mouth, a laryngeal spasm, good Lord, I was going to get that out of me, can occur, causing the muscles around the vocal cords to contract. Now, Patrick explains, consequently, that this contraction restricts airflow to your lungs. It can also make it difficult to fit a breathing tube in your throat. A misconception is that this event could occur hours after exposure to water, but more likely this would occur immediately after exposure to water. In sports on the ice, the Panthers eliminated the Rangers on Saturday, and the Oilers eliminated the Stars on Sunday. Both teams did it at home, and now the Stanley Cup Final is set. It will be the Edmonton Oilers versus the Florida Panthers for Lord Stanley's Cup. Game 1 is in Sunrise, Florida on Saturday. Meanwhile, on the hardwood, Game 1 between the Dallas Mavericks and the Boston Celtics will begin Thursday in Beantown. Oh, and prayers go out to Deontay Wilder as he suffered a 5th-round knockout in Saudi Arabia this past Saturday. Turning our attention to weather across the country, as we patiently wait, in the Pacific Northwest, it will be all the west stuff you can handle in 59 in Seattle. It will be a sun and thunderstorm mix with a high of 81 in Minneapolis, Partly cloudy and 85 in Chicago. Partly cloudy and 89 in St. Louis. Partly cloudy and 80 in Detroit. Over on the East Coast, it'll be partly cloudy and 78 in Boston. Partly cloudy and 86 in New York. Partly cloudy and 84 in Washington. All right, down south, rain and 85 in Miami. It will be partly cloudy and 85 in Atlanta. It will be thunderstorms and 81 in Memphis. It will be rain and 89 in New Orleans. In the Southwest, it will be 96 and partly cloudy in San Antonio. It will be a sun and thunderstorm mix with a high of 87 in Dallas. The same thing, sun and thunderstorm mix, a high of 89 in Houston. And prayers out to both metropolitan areas. They have been going through it over the past weekend with all the wet stuff they can handle. In the Rockies, it will be a high of 88 and partly cloudy in Denver. The high spot in the country will be sunny and 102 in Phoenix. I'm sorry. That would be one of the hot spots. The hot spot actually is in Las Vegas, partly cloudy in 103. And over in the West Coast, it will be partly cloudy and 65 in the Bay Area. And hopefully there won't be hopefully there'll be less winds, and we can tame that wildfire and it won't be spreading. And it will be partly cloudy and 72 in Los Angeles. Well, that takes care of the weather for today. And now you have been properly started up. Coming up later, what does God think about pride? And also in our cover story, the wildfires in Northern California. Wait, it's June. Doesn't that normally happen later in the year? We'll touch on that later. But coming up next, the unfortunate violent circumstances in a town 50 miles south of Cleveland. This is the Morning Shift with Cole Johnson. We'll be right back right after this.
BS3 Network, changing the way you watch TV.
Hey, Eagles fan. Join my man Cool McCain and a host of others as they break down every single game, every single week in an objective manner, and also from a fan's perspective as well. Remember, this cast feels just like you. Nobody likes you. And you don't care. Fly, Eagles, fly. Eagles Elite Podcast, every Wednesday at 8:30 p.m. Eastern on YouTube and other podcast outlets. Are you looking for something to do on your lunch break? Well, there's a show on the BS3 Network that has only 4 words to say to you.
We ready, we ready, we ready for y'all. We ready, we ready, we ready for y'all. The Lunch Break, powered by JM&E. Live weekdays at 1 p.m. Eastern, noon Central.
Welcome back to the morning shift with Cole Johnson on the BS3 Network. Glad that you're here, Shifter. And I'm glad that your weekend went well. I say that because you're here. All right, to Shift Nation we go. And look, I appreciate Shift Nation. And speaking of which, we're getting the week off to a good start, let alone the day, let alone the episode or broadcast by the Playmaker saying morning shift, morning shift, morning shift. Thank you. I appreciate that. Appreciate the love, Playmaker. Yes, you already know. And later on tonight, you will see him and Cool McCain in Monarchs of Wrestling. That's at 6:30 p.m. Eastern. Tune in on the Real Colors Sports YouTube channel, and as well as the Shady Sports Network YouTube channel. That's 6:30 p.m. Eastern, 5:30 p.m. Central. Monarchs of Wrestling, all things wrestling. Those two do a wonderful job. No credentials required. Its own Ryan McCarthy. He says, "Good morning, fellow shifters, and good morning to you, Shifter." I appreciate that. And of course, you can catch him and Dustin Henry on No Credentials Required every Tuesday, 8 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Central on the No Creds, that's CREDS-REQ, No Creds REQ YouTube channel. He also says, and my co-host Dustin couldn't be happier or more nerve-wracked. That is, of course, his Oilers now is in the Stanley Cup Final. And his Mavs are in the NBA Finals. So yes, as a sports fan, I'm sure he is beside himself. Happy for him too, Ryan. Although, yeah, the fact that a Dallas team gets to fight for another championship shivers in my bones. Cool McCain, the hardest working content creator I know, and a wonderful brother. We had a wonderful conversation Friday. He says, "Good morning, Shift Nation," and to the lead shifter, thank you, sir. And a good morning to you, sir. I'm glad that you were here. And maybe I need to have you all with me with this one because sometimes it's fun to do things of the news nature, and then other times you have to do stories like this. So over the past weekend, there was an unfortunate happenstance that took place in Akron, which is about 50 miles south of Cleveland. And I will talk about the festivities. I'll talk about the activities further. As it just my thoughts, I just have to talk about how these incidents just simply keep happening and more of the malaise starts to take place because people are getting more anesthetized and numb to it all. Man. So it was one person dead and 24 injured as authorities in Ohio, or I should say authorities in Akron, are appealing for the public's help in identifying those responsible for a shooting, which left that one man dead and the 24 parties injured this Sunday morning during a large street party gathering. The chief of police of Akron, Brian Harding, said at a Sunday evening news conference that officers broke up a birthday celebration of around 200 people after it took over a street and prompted complaints about 10 p.m. Saturday night. The party then eventually got restarted, and shortly after midnight, calls arrived at the police station about gunshots at the same location in southeast Akron. The violence unfolded, had the makings of a drive-by, with some partygoers returning fire. Now, Harding said investigators still don't know how many shooters or weapons were involved, though they have recovered 2 handguns and believe a rifle also was utilized. Harding went on to say about the incident, quote, "The scene was littered with spent shell casings, mostly pistol caliber rounds," close quote. Now, he nor his department didn't identify the person killed, but they said that the guy pretty much would say it was a male and it was around the age of 27, adding that the 2 other victims, which are in critical condition, and they're ranging in ages from 19 to 43, with the majority of them in their 30s. Now, police said that they received multiple 911 calls about the shooting and that many victims arrived at hospitals via private vehicles. Police also responded to multiple shootings in the area over the past several months, not just that Saturday night, early Sunday morning incident. With no suspects and nobody connected to the incident in custody, police are now calling for witnesses to provide information. Harding said that there's as many as 100 who saw or witnessed what transpired. Quote, "We are imploring the community to come forward with anything that you might know regarding this terrible incident. We have concerns about the possibility of retaliation and are taking steps to prevent that. And we need the community's help." Close quote. These things always go wrong from the standpoint of you have a lot of skepticism and cynicism when it comes to police work, when it comes to police action, and when it comes to the community. And I can think about this when I had conversations with my own father when I was young, and he talked about when in his time in Oakland, he witnessed a lot of tense interaction between police and the community, and how those simmering things can all of a sudden, for lack of a better term, turn into a wildfire all of its own. And I think you're starting to see this. And of course, the atmosphere of, well, there's no snitching, snitches get stitches and all of that. The popular, well, don't rat out people, is pervasive through communities like this. And it's unfortunate that we have this happen, because more of these situations will transpire and stuff will devolve and spiral downward. At the news conference, Mayor Shamas Malik said that those involved in the shooting and anyone who retaliates for it will be brought to justice, and he lamented on the prevalence of violence as a means to resolve disputes, saying, quote, "The level of violence in our community, and frankly in communities across the country, is out of control. The availability of weapons, the casualness with which some people use weapons. Something that in the past may have been a fist fight now turns into a deadly shooting like this. We have to hold people accountable when they commit violence." Close quote. And, this used to be something where people would be shocked into stunned silence. Like, oh no, I can't believe this violence on such a huge magnitude and scale happened. And I think back 25 years ago to the Columbine shooting in Colorado. People were saying, "Oh my gosh, I can't believe this," and it's happening in school too, to boot. Oh wow, no, we got to stop this. That was 1999. Then you go about 11 years later to having a theater shooting that took place around the same area in Aurora, Colorado. And it basically was like, oh, okay, business as usual. Okay, some violent thug went psycho and he just sprayed a whole ton of people with hot lead. Okay. All right. So yeah, what did the Rangers do? It just seems so nonchalant. And it's unfortunate. I mean, we have incidents like this where things have just gone out of control, and I'll talk about that in a minute. Now, unfortunately, not even in that same area, you have to deal with this type of stuff. So there was gunfire, which erupted, in a Pittsburgh suburb this past Sunday. An investigation shooting at Ballas Hookah Lounge and Cigar Bar. They killed 2 people and it's injured several others. Now, the shooting took place in Penn Hills, and that's east of Pittsburgh. And this was shortly before 3 a.m. on Sunday. And investigators say several victims walked into nearby hospitals, where one person remains in critical condition. The Allegheny County Police said in a statement, quote, "Preliminary information indicates an altercation took place inside the bar and multiple individuals opened fire," close quote. Now, according to the Gun Violence Archive, there have been more than 180 mass shootings in the U.S. so far this year. To put that in perspective, we have not had 180 days take place in 2024 yet. That won't be until probably right before Independence Day, like July the 1st, 2nd, around there. But we haven't had 180 days yet in this year, and we've had more mass shootings, not just a shooting with involving two people. We've had more mass shootings than days in the year. And as defined by Gun Violence Archive, a mass shooting would be a minimum of 4 victims either shot or killed, not including the shooter. However, here's encouraging news, if actually it is encouraging. That's a lower level year to date than some recent years. As opposed to last year, there was 655 mass shootings nationally, 644 the year before, 689 in 2021. Well, what these numbers actually say is that this is a problem which needs to be solved. And unfortunately, it used to be a day where we talked about it on Friday. Not Friday day of the week, Friday the movie, where the late John Witherspoon, as Pop, implored his son Craig, played by Ice Cube, when he said, quote, son, I just want you to come home, and I want you to put these up. He says, son, it used to be a time where all you had to do to settle disputes was just fight. You win some, you lose some. But no matter what, you live to fight another day. Close quote. And I couldn't say it any better than that. And to give you hope, no matter who's the guest, no matter what the topic is, and no matter what the topic might be, join Wise Elefe, my brother, my best friend, yes, my mentality partner, Stuck in My Mind podcast. It's a wonderful show where he interviews a guest, about 35 to 45 minutes of nuggets being dropped and wisdom being either exposed or dispensed. Stuck in My Mind podcast. It is live every Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday at 5 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Central on Roku TV via BS3 and the Stuck in My Mind YouTube channel. That is Stuck in My Mind podcast live every Monday, every Tuesday, and every Wednesday at 5 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Central on Roku TV with the BS3 app on Roku, the BS3 BS3live.com BS3live.com or the Stuck in My Mind YouTube channel. That's Stuck in My Mind podcast live every Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, 5 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Central. Coming up next, from mass shootings to mass fires. The Money Shiver Cole Johnson will return right after this.
There's a 100% chance of a laugh thunderstorm. 4 men with different viewpoints take a movie, show, or documentary and review it uncensored, unfiltered, uncompromised, with no holds barred. Join BS3, Wilkes, King Doc, and H-Rap B as they take on Hollywood their own way. BS3 Network proudly presents The Forecast, where H-Rap B always predicts,
if I owe you something, I ain't got it. And if you need it, get it from God.
live every Monday at 8:30 p.m. Central. Check your local listings for your viewing and listening pleasure. This is a BS3 Network presentation.
to do a TED Talk, but I don't have anything to talk about yet. I'm getting there.
Life is for the living. We're not here that long.
You can learn anything you want to learn without any money spent.
What do I really enjoy? What do I really want out of life?
I am your host, WIZE.
Are you in a life holding pattern? Well, this is for you. Welcome to the Stuck in My Mind podcast. Live every Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday at 4 p.m. Central. This is a BS3 Network presentation.
So, sit back, tune in, tell a friend. This Dope Cooking Show, we about to get started, and it's about to go down. Check me out.
Join your culinary master of ceremonies, Chef Jeff, as he introduces to you This Dope Cooking Show. Live every Tuesday at 6:30 p.m. Eastern, 5:30 p.m. Central.
Welcome back to the morning shift with Cole Johnson on the BS3 Network. Again, I am Cole Johnson, and Shifter, I'm so glad you're here. It is a blessing that you're here. It's a blessing to be alive, and it's a blessing to see you and your wonderful face adorn this program. Thank you so much for being here. I appreciate you, and many prayers go out to you. Now, it's unfortunate that we have to deal with tragedies, and we just touched on shootings. Now we touch on wildfires, and it's funny, I wasn't expecting to have a story like this be touched on so early in the year, but here we are in June, and we're dealing with wildfires. So on today's cover story, we're going to touch on why normally this doesn't happen in the late spring and the summer, but this is something that normally happens in the late summer and early fall in California. Now, it's unfortunate that this past weekend we are dealing with this. However, along with earthquakes, and we talked about this in Start You Up, the improved conditions allow firefighters, thankfully, to double containment Sunday of a wildfire about 50 miles east of San Francisco that prompted evacuations of parts of San Joaquin County, injuring 2 people thus far. The Corral Fire grew from 12,500 to 14,000 acres, but calmer winds, less heat, and more humidity gave a deployment of 400 CAL FIRE personnel a chance to make inroads after a rough first day of Saturday fires. And the AG said in its update Sunday, about roughly 1 p.m. Pacific time, quote, weather conditions became more favorable with firefighters, allowing crews to make progress constructing and improving control lines, close quote. The blaze began Saturday afternoon amid gusty winds southwest of the city of Tracy, and is cause still under CAL FIRE investigation. The battalion chief, Josh Silveira, told CNN 2 firefighters were hospitalized in stable condition with, in his terms, minor to moderate injuries. Now, the question remains, are there any homes in danger at the moment? Well, hopefully not, but an evacuation order near the city of Tracy, as of today, this morning, was still in place. Images and video have been shared by CAL FIRE, and it shows that flames burning through dry glass near high-powered electric lines, but thankfully not near any homes as of now. The agency said that numerous firefighting air tankers from throughout the state are flying fire suppression missions as conditions allow. Now, authorities said that the fire started near the Lawrence Livermore the Lawrence Livermore National Laboratories explosive testing area, and it is known as Site 300 experimental test site. But it did not pose an immediate threat. The federal lab, about 40 miles southeast of downtown Oakland, conducts experiments on nuclear reactions, lasers, atomic structure, and molecular biology. And a fire does not pose an immediate threat near it. I'm sorry. Sometimes there's logic and sometimes there's this. I digress. Local authorities have opened a large animal shelter and asked residents to leave a big area south of the fire across Corral Hollow Road. Caltrans closed Interstate 580 from the Alameda County line to the Stanislaus County line and said that State Road 132 is closed from I-580 to State Road 33. You know, sometimes I think when we have these situations happen, I sometimes think that when we live in a certain area, we think that we have to pay the here's our natural disaster tax. For example, if you live on the East Coast, chances are you're going to be dealing with snow and sometimes blizzards. I mean, if you're like north of DC. Let me see. If you're in the Midwest, you might have to cross your fingers. Of course, you got the brutal cold at times, but you also might have to deal with tornadoes too. And sometimes all the way down to Texas, you got to deal with that, along with hurricanes if you're on a coastal area, or in right now dealing with actual flooding if you have rain pockets just sit at certain times and days at a time, drowning you with water. And then you have the West Coast where you deal with either you can deal with hurricanes, but it's rare. But either you deal with mudslides. These are one of the three natural disasters you have to deal with the West Coast, especially in California: mudslides, wildfires, or earthquakes. And we had 2 of the 3 happen this weekend. So it's like whenever you live at a certain place in the country, it's like, okay, well, if this happens, we just have to live with it. And then it's how people, when they are in the hurricane areas, they're like, I've gone through worse. I've lived through worse. I'll stay here. I'll deal with the damage, whatever, and I'll deal with the consequences later. However, it was any of the other things that happened, like if it were to be blizzarding in Houston, or if it were to if it were to have hurricanes hit California, or if New York went through a heat wave, then then that anomaly will cause people to say, whoa, wait a minute. Well, there's something wrong. But if it's the natural disaster that sort of goes with that area, it sort of is taken with the laissez-faire attitude of, okay, well, that happens here. And I'm getting the feeling that's the case with these storms, with these wildfires and earthquakes even. Now, following a second year in a row of average or better precipitation during the rainy part of the season, which is now, California is getting a late start to the fire season and is much better shape than much of the drought that took place from 2020, 2021, and 2022. That was the state's driest recorded 3-year stretch ever. No parts of California are expected to be exposed to above normal wildfire until September. And that's according to the forecast released Saturday by the National Interagency Fire Center. Now, as of this past May 28th, the 1,253 wildfires so far this year represents a 32% dip from the 5-year average of 1,843 for the same date. But things can change quickly, and the weather outlook for this week points to higher fire danger. A heat dome is projected to hit California and much of the West by midweek, spiking temperatures into the triple digits in the Central Valley, which is not too far from where that fire is, and possibly setting records. The intense heat drives vegetation and makes it more likely to burn quickly during a fire, especially when the wind picks up. So that's why I'm praying that there is very little wind, and hopefully there is more moisture that takes place where these fires are happening. Well, speaking of fires, these four guys blaze it up no matter what and when, and you probably will see the return of King Doc, as unfortunately the stars have now been eliminated. But tune in to the forecast tonight and every Monday night, where you'll catch four guys take either a show, a documentary, or a movie, and they'll review it their own way. Siskel and Ebert have nothing on these four. Join BS3, Mayhem, or Wilkes, King Doc, and A-Trap B as they break down movies, documentaries, and TV shows their own way. BS3 proudly presents the forecast live tonight and every Monday at 9:30 p.m. Eastern, 8:30 p.m. Central on Roku TV via BS3, the BS3 Network YouTube channel, the BS3 Network Facebook page, and the _forecast YouTube channel. That's the forecast live tonight and every Monday night, 9:30 p.m. Eastern, 8:30 p.m. Central on Roku TV. You can hit the BS3 logo on the Roku app, bs3live.com, the BS3 Network YouTube channel, the BS3 Network Facebook page, and the _forecast YouTube channel. And when I return, pride. How does God deal with that? What does he think about that? This is the Morning Shift with Cole Johnson on the BS3 Network. We'll be right back right after this.
The moderator.
As woman, you can't be too friendly, because the minute you're friendly, then they think you're flirting.
The level head.
I think so that thing is over. So I'm not looking at men like that anymore.
The truth slayer.
Okay, what in the HPV yeast infection is going on over here?
The X factor.
So I'd rather you tell me everything up front and let's start fresh.
The intersection of life and spirituality never sounded this good. BS3 Network proudly presents Life Happens live every Wednesday at 8 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Central. Cool McCain.
You thought you wanted Gunther against Chad Gable, but you didn't. And I'm going to tell you why. Chad Gable would take everything that Gunther's done and bury it.
The Playmaker.
It was on site. AJ Styles walked out there, seen LA Knight. Oh, okay. Then LA Knight hopped out the car. Let's go.
Break down everything in TNA, AEW, and all of the WWE programming. Join these two kings, monarchs of wrestling, live every Monday at 6:30 p.m. Eastern, 5:30 p.m. Central on the Play Caller Sports Talk YouTube channel. Alicia.
You can't hold somebody to that standard if you haven't voiced what you want and what you're needing from that.
Mika.
If you're not communicating expectations, you're waiting for your feelings to be hurt.
Nicole.
Yeah. A lot of people don't want to take the time out to be alone and to get themselves together.
Ivan.
You got to be willing to work through stuff. And from the jump street, y'all done had problems. Maybe you don't need to be working through those.
BS3 Network proudly presents Queen 3 and King podcast. Live every Tuesday at 7 p.m. Central.
Join AJ and his cast of Coach Johnny Cole and Chris Gardner as they talk about sports in a way that will brighten the rest of your day. The morning shift feeds to the lunch break, and that is live, and it takes place every weekday, 1 p.m. Eastern, noon Central, and that is on Roku TV via BS3 and the Jones Media and ENT YouTube channel. That is a lunch break powered by JM&E. Thanks to AJ, live every weekday, 1 p.m. Eastern, noon Central on Roku TV. You can hit the BS3 logo on the Roku TV app, bs3live.com, and the Jones Media and ENT YouTube channel. It is great to see you again, Shifter, as we wind things down. Into Shift Nation we head. And we're seeing my man, Snowman, of Snowman in the Morning. Of course, he will touch on all things sports. Of course, he's going to be giddy about all things Stanley Cup Final between the Panthers and the Oilers. He says, hey, Snowman, checking in from Indiana. He says, with a chance to go to Joliet for the Illinois High School Baseball Championship Series. Dr. K, his wife, sends her love and support, and I send the love right back to you and her, sir. And he greets the rest of Chef Nation. Now, pride sometimes is considered a good thing, but I think people don't fully grasp what pride really is about. And so in order for that to happen, when there's a consternation, there's something that stumps me. I'm like, okay, well, God, how do you view pride? Well, here's how he views it. Enlightening the way. Now, when most people talk about pride, it's sort of the nature of our, skin color or history or family name or the job we have or the church in which we attend or the parents we have or the children we have. And in studying all of what pride represents in terms of how God views it, pride seems to have a self-absorbed connotation to it, a self-absorbed attachment. My car, my house, my clothes, my show. And yeah, it's great to have the self-esteem and things. I mean, it's wonderful to do this particular program in front of all of you. But if I were to have the mentality that this is my show and you're all just very fortunate to be here, I guarantee that would turn all of you off. And in just saying that, it turns me off in actually saying that to you. And so that's what it made me realize, okay, so this is what you think about pride within Lord. Got it. Okay. And so when I went to studying even more about it, this is what came up. So, of course, when it comes to things that are about wisdom, you always got to go to the book of Proverbs because Solomon has a horde of wise things to say and wise idioms to ponder. And this is of no exception. In chapter 11, the second verse, he says, quote, "When pride comes, then comes disgrace, but with the humble is wisdom," close quote. So I think I've had to understand that pride is not considered a good thing with God. That again, we attach our own things to it. Think about if Jesus were to be that type of person. If he were to say, I am this important. And he didn't say it, but his actions showed that he was. So basically he let the actions do the talking literally for him. But if he were to say it, if he were to going into wrestling, if he was like Ric Flair and he would just be bombastic and just brag all over the place about the fact that he is the son of God and then he has all this power, and that with a snap of his fingers, 10,000 angels could just fall, people would look at him and say, "Oh Lord, get out of here," and you would turn them off. Jesus, being the wise man that he was and is, it's like, no, that's not the approach I'm going to take. The approach I'm going to take is loving. And I'm just going to be practical. This is me. You know, I come representing God, you know, my Father. I do my Father's work. This isn't me. This is my Father's work I'm doing. So that's what Jesus is. The opposite of that is suffering comes after hubris. I mean, and for those who don't know, hubris is like having a lot of pride in something that you do and a lot of self-importance in what you're about. And going into Proverbs, another 5 chapters later, in the 18th verse of chapter 16, Solomon says, quote, "Pride goes before destruction and a haughty spirit before a fall." So, close quote. So if you have pride, then basically expect a come up. Expect a comeuppance somewhere, somehow, with somebody or something. If you're going to have this pride that you're going to walk in wherever with, expect to be humbled mightily. That is what that scripture means. Also, that scripture means that you erroneously think that your efforts alone got you glory. You know, like, man, I hit that note. Or, wow, you know, I said that speech beautifully. No. As David beautifully sang in Psalm 10, verse 4, he says, "In the pride of his face, the wicked does not seek him. All his thoughts are, there is no God." And you have people who think, well, I got here with my own power. I didn't get here through God. I didn't get here through Jesus. I got here through my own. You know, I pulled up my own bootstraps. You know, I'm breathing my own air. You know, God didn't create oxygen. That type of thinking is extremely dangerous especially to people who are spirit fed and spirit led. But it's dangerous, period, because it makes people think, okay, well, yeah, you think a little too highly of yourself. If this is you got to put a pause on that. And why? The Lord opposes the proud. I mean, he doesn't like proud individuals. James actually said it in chapter 4. He says in the 6th verse, quote, "But he gives more grace. Therefore, it says, God opposes the proud, but gives grace to the humble," close quote. Which leads directly into what is the antithesis of pride, or at least the antidote to pride. It's humility. To Philippi, Paul talks about this in the 2nd chapter of it, of Philippians. The 3rd verse, he goes, quote, "Do nothing from selfish ambition or conceit, but in humility count others more significant than yourselves," close quote. Humility is the antithesis of pride. Wisdom is the medicine that you inject into pride. That's what I've had to witness and understand and ascertain from this. Again, it's great to have esteem about things, about your family, about your businesses, about your creative pursuits, about the friends you have, about the job that you may work. It's good to have that type of esteem, and it's good to be proud of that, yes. But you got to know where the genesis of that is from, and that is a purposeful pun, where the genesis of where all this good fortune has come for you and for me and for you, Shifter. Of course, that good fortune came from God. So pride has no place anywhere in our lives, because it will set you up for disaster. Well, that is all the time I have. Thank you so much, Shifter, for gracing me with your presence. I really do appreciate that. I do not take you and your presence for granted. And one more time to Shift Nation before I close. Playmaker says, well, what's the saying? Pride becomes for the fall. Yeah, that actually was derived from scripture. So that's exactly what happens, bro. Yes, sir. But yes, Shifter, thank you for liking. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for subscribing. Thank you for commenting. Thank you, Shift Nation, for your wonderful comments. And thank you for the comments when you see this on replay as well. And thank you for hitting that notification bell so you can catch everything that comes from the BS3 Morning Shift Cole Johnson YouTube channel. For all of us at the BS3 Network and the Morning Shift, I am Cole Johnson, here to say in parting, as I always do. If you lack commitment, you won't start. If you lack consistency, you will never finish. And if you lack love, you most certainly will never conquer. Until we meet again in 23 Hour Shifter, have a blessed day.